America, this is your autopsy. The King Files and the nation that killed its conscience. I'm Edie Mondonay, and this is Mondonay Now. America, this is your autopsy. The King Files and the nation that killed its conscience. My friend, welcome to Mondonay Now. This is where we speak boldly, plainly, and truthfully because the times demand it. Today I sit in somberness and uncontrolled tears as I look over the landscape of this great America. I can't help but see the reckoning of its darkest secrets and its darkest days. The ground beneath us is groaning with exposed truths. Truths we were never meant to see, not because they were too complex, not because we couldn't comprehend them, but because they were too damning to admit. This is not just the unsealing of dusty archives. This is the exhuming of a body buried with lies. The newly released files concerning the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. are more than historical. They are receipts. The receipts of betrayal, surveillance, psychological warfare, and what many have long believed to be coordinated complicity at the highest levels of American government. Now, I haven't read all 240,000 documents. Few people have, undoubtedly will, but I have read enough of the highlights, summaries, and expert analysis now made available to know that the pain many of us carried in our bones has now been transcribed in ink. We've got to now wrestle with what it means for a nation to celebrate the dream while hiding the blueprint of the nightmare. Well, what are these files going to reveal? On July 21st, under the directive of former President, our president, Donald Trump, more than 240,000 pages of records were declassified and released to the public. These files, now accessible through the National Archives and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, illuminate what many in the black community have always known and what America has worked hard to forget. Amongst the most disturbing highlights is the COINTELPRO documents revealing deliberate campaigns to discredit and dismantle Dr. King's public image. Surveillance reports and internal FBI memos documenting efforts to track King's movements and exploit his personal life. CIA and international cables from the global manhunt for James Earl Ray, some of which raise questions about overlooked leads and broader involvement. These aren't simply historical documents. They are the fingerprints of institutional terror. The pain runs deeper than paper. This release does not simply document injustice, it reanimates it. State-sanctioned sabotage under J. Edgar Hoover. The FBI didn't just monitor King, it orchestrated a campaign of disruption, planning rumors, sending anonymous threats, and seeking to erode his marriage, ministry, and mind. Psychological warfare. The pages may now be declassified, but the trauma they contain never was. These files force Black Americans to relive a brutal truth. Our prophets were not protected, they were targeted. Erasure by design. The King family never requested this kind of release. In fact, they pleaded for empathy and timing. What we received instead was a political spectacle. Their grief has been placed on public display without consent. There's a shattered trust if a man who preached nonviolence, love, and democratic justice was viewed by his own government as a threat. Then what does that say about the rest of us who speak out today? My beloved, listen, surveillance still lives. They bugged his phones, they bug our protests. They smeared his name, they smear our movements. The tools have evolved, but the intent, it remains intact. Church complicity and silence where were the pulpits when Hoover lied? Where are they now? When truth burns in the streets, too many are still more interested in attendance than allegiance to justice. What's being covered? And why does it matter? We can't be naive. The timing of this release is as calculated as its contents. It arrives amid efforts to discredit federal institutions, using black pain to score political points. But in this theater of manipulation, we must stay focused on the truth beneath this ugly strategy. The release invites haunting questions, stuff like, did James Earl Ray truly act alone? And why were credible threats to King ignored? And what's still redacted and why? And what did it say? No single smoking gun is going to be found here, but that does not mean that the gun didn't fire. It means the government buried the bullets. And how dare a nation drape itself in red, white, and blue when its institutions drip with the ink of deceit and assassination? You don't get to celebrate Dr. King on Monday while erasing him on Tuesday. This nation loves its prophets. Once they're dead, quiet, and safe from statues, but living truth tellers, they get labeled radical, criminal, un-American. We've got to do something, and we've got to do it right now. And this is not the time to simply mourn. It is the time to mobilize. Demand full federal accountability. Congress must investigate, not in symbolism, but in structure. We need hearings, subpoenas, and national reckonings, not just for King, but for the people he represented. There needs to be a requirement, an apology that redresses the United States government. We've got to apologize, not just with words, but with policy that includes funding for black institutions, referendums, and justice, and institutional reform. All in order and all in line. We've got to correct the record stop and teaching children a watered-down version of Dr. King. He was not a dreamer in the clouds. He was a disruptor on the ground. That truth must be reflected in every textbook. He spoke truth to power. And we've got to protect today's truth tellers. New prophets are rising, activists, journalists, pastors, poets. If history tells us anything, is that they will be targeted. We must defend them right now, not after the eulogies. And we've got to create healing spaces. We must provide room for grief and dialogue. This is a generational trauma. Faith communities, therapists, and historians must join hands to guide us through what we're uncovering. The truth has to be known, and it can't ever be sealed again. Dr. King's death was not merely an assassination, it was an execution of America's most dangerous idea, that freedom should be real for all. He was not killed for dreaming too big, he was killed for exposing the lie that liberty was ever truly equal. These files prove it. The people feel it. The reckoning has arrived. But in every reckoning, there's also a revival. And we, descendants of the enslaved and the anointed, are the ones tasked with writing the final word, not just in secrecy, not just in code, but in fire. And we've got to let it burn. Let it burn. Let the myth burn. Let it cleanse the lie. Burn the fairy tales. They feed our children. Burn the eulogies sanctified by white comfort. Burn the redacted pages for history that protect the guilty and shame the innocent. And let the remains be the damn truth.